Hello again, my name's Gabe Zollner. I went ahead and did some research on that crash that took place in Wichita, Kansas. The airplane was a Hawker Beechcraft model B200. It's known as a Super King Air. And it has two Pratt & Whitney PT6A 41 engines. Each engine develops 1,015 horsepower. It holds 120 gallons of gasoline. Now, for those of you that are pilots, you'll understand this aspect of it. And for those of you that aren't, you might learn something. The airport itself has an elevation of 1,333 feet. Elevation does affect an airplane's performance. The higher the airport's elevation, the less performance because the air is thinner. But that's a whole different story. What I wanted to try to understand is why this airplane might have crashed. And for those of you that, again, are pilots, you understand how critical it is to do a complete and thorough walk around. This particular airplane is considered to be extremely high performance. It requires a great deal of knowledge, a great deal of expertise, a great deal of practice, and a great detail to detail. What that means is that you overlook something, and it might be the last thing you're ever going to do. The pre-flight is critical. And what tends to happen as part of the pre-flight, after you've gone through your entire pre-flight properly, you have to do an engine run-up. This airplane has, again, jet engines, but they drive propellers. That's why it's called a turboprop. And once again, this airplane is capable of single engine performance. It can take off from an airport with just one engine operational. The key, again, is for the pilots to be fully aware of what to anticipate. What happens is, as you push both throttles forward, both engines will produce full power if the throttles are pushed full forward, which is what you would do for takeoff. As the airplane begins to accelerate, you have to get to the proper airspeed for that particular airplane based on weight, based on altitude, based on temperature. And then you would pull back on the throttle. Now, what people don't necessarily know is that there's an advantage to twins, and the advantage is that if you lose an engine at altitude, you can make it back to an airport. But that's really a misnomer, and the reason that is a lot depends on the type of twin. With a twin like this, that in fact would be the case. But if you were in, let's say, a Beechcraft Duchess, which has 180 horsepower per side, and if you were flying at a high altitude airport, well, it would take you to your crash site. It cannot maintain altitude above 5,000 feet. This airplane could and can. Now, what has to happen is as soon as an engine is lost, especially on takeoff, if an engine is lost on takeoff and if the pilot doesn't respond quickly enough, what he has to do is dead engine, dead leg. Which means that if he doesn't have to push on the right rudder and he has to push on the left rudder, dead engine, dead leg. He knows which engine's out, then he's got to immediately feather the propellers. What that means is to change the angle of the blades, because if you don't feather the propellers, they act like a 4x8 sheet of plywood. And what that would do is, since one engine is pulling and the other one is acting like a brake, it would tortoise the airplane. It would flip it over. So I don't know what happened here. It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, but accidents very seldom do make a whole lot of sense. In many cases, it comes down to pilot error, and I'm not suggesting that that's what happened here. I'm suggesting that something obviously happened that took the life of not only the pilots, but the innocent people that were working in the building that the plane crashed into. From what the media has reported, the airplane was trying to return back to the airport. What that would tell me is that the pilot had control of the aircraft. And then, for whatever reason, the airplane went into a building. We'll see what NTSB comes up with. That's a National Transportation Authority, but I would expect that it'll take quite a while before they can come to any definitive reason as to why this plane crashed. You might want to go do a little bit of Googling. I went up and looked at the owner's handbook on this airplane. Again, it's a Hawker Beechcraft B200 Super King Air. And it does have an automatic feathering feature. And I don't know if that's optional. In other words, if an engine gets lost on takeoff or even at altitude, it would automatically feather that engine. Again, I don't know if that's an option, and if it is, if that airplane had one or not. But people, again, need to understand that as wonderful as aviation is, which it is, it's also very unforgiving. You make a mistake, and that might be the very last mistake you're ever going to make. In either case, I'm not trying to act like I'm part of the investigative team, because I'm not. I am a pilot, and being a pilot, I read a publication called Aviation Safety. You might want to look into that. It's a very worthwhile magazine, especially if you are a pilot. I've been reading it for, I don't know, 20 years. And I've published 3 articles in that magazine. I've submitted 3 articles, and all 3 were published. If you'd like to learn more about what I submitted and what they published, let me know, and I'd be pleased to let you know. Once again, airplanes are wonderful. Make a mistake, they're unforgiving. Let me know what you think. I told you what I think.